What is going on with sculptures of angelic beings? Is this somehow a violation of the second commandment? Well, we're going to talk about that and other things here on Wake Up to the Bible. I'm Daniel Kaplan. I'm here with my father, Dr. Kaplan. Together, we're going through the books of the law, Genesis through Deuteronomy, a little bit every day. Today, we are reading Exodus 25:17 through 30. I'll be reading from the Robert Alter translation, and then we will discuss what we have read. And you shall make a cover of pure gold, 2.5 cubits in length, its length, and 1.5 cubits its width. And you shall make 2 cherubim of gold, hammered work you shall make them at the 2 edges of the cover, and make 1 cherub at one edge and 1 cherub at the other edge. From the cover you shall make the cherubim at both its edges, and the cherubim shall spread wings above, shielding their cover with their wings, and their faces towards each other. Toward the cover the faces of the cherubim shall be. And you shall set the covering upon the ark from above, and in the ark you shall set the tablets of the covenant that I shall give you. And I shall meet with you there and speak with you from above the covering between the 2 cherubim that are on the top of the ark of the covenant, all that I shall charge you regarding the Israelites. And you shall make a table of acacia wood, 2 cubits its length, and 1 cubit its width, and 1.5 cubits its height. And you shall overlay it with pure gold, and make for it golden molding all around. And you shall make a frame for it, a hand's breadth all around, and you shall make a golden molding for its frame all around. And you shall make 4 gold rings for it, and set the rings at the 4 corners which are at its 4 legs. Facing the frame the rings shall be as housings for the poles to carry the table. And you shall make the poles of acacia wood, and overlay them with gold, and the table shall be carried with them. And you shall make its bowls, and its shovels, and its jars, and its chalices, from which libation is done, pure gold you shall make them. And you shall set on the table the bread of the presence before me perpetually. All right, so some more specific instructions, but one of the more, contentious ones, or maybe confusing ones, is this idea that as part of the cover of the Ark of the Covenant, you have these figures of something from the angelic realm. And the question is, well, doesn't it say in the second commandment to not make any sort of sculpture of anything from heaven? Isn't that a disagreement? So, what do you say about that?
Well, as a source of worship, you don't worship the cherubim. You notice that the mercy seat. There's no depiction of God there. There's just the mercy seat. It's just a covering that is, and so His presence is there, but there's no depiction of God. There's a depiction of the throne and what's going on around the throne, but not. So I would say that this is not a matter of worship. It's a matter of just a depiction of the area around the throne and the beings around the throne.
Now, do you think that?
And by the way, let me say also,
Yeah.
this was something that was in the Holy of Holies ultimately, so that nobody ever saw it except the high priest once a
Well, when they
year.
carried it around.
Well, yeah, that's true. They did carry it around,
Yeah.
so then they would have seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
I mean, somebody random, touches it and dies, so it wasn't,
That's yeah.
so
That's
it
true.
wasn't completely hidden.
No,
It
yeah,
does go in front of everybody, like there's a distance,
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a
um,
good point.
so it's not completely hidden. But you're right, it's not. It's still isolated to a certain extent. It's like if somebody wanted to read this and be like, "Hey, how about in my church sanctuary, I put in statues of angels around the podium in order to indicate kind of something," I would say that's not an appropriate application of this because what that this is symbolizing is God's presence, right? So are you trying to say that your minister is God? Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense, right? And the purpose of it is very different than that. I'm trying to think of an example that would even come up
It's
nowadays.
somewhat unique. Also, the
It is.
structure.
I mean, the
This,
Ark of the Covenant is just a unique artifact altogether.
I was going to.
Now, what if somebody wanted to make a replica of the Ark of the Covenant as part of their church structure or something? I feel like that's a
No.
little inappropriate too because of the sacredness of the artifact. Now we've talked to replicas and people do it, and they usually will have a replica of the Ark of the Covenant as part of it
for
for
for for
educational purpose.
educational, but not as part of of actual
Right.
sanctuary. And I would
But
like
what
to.
about as part of like decor, which you're not worshiping it, but it's just iconography that you relate to? What do you think of using it as iconography? Like in a stained glass window or a mural or something like that. What do you think? I'm getting in the weeds. I like
I
asking
wouldn't
these
think
questions.
I'm not sure it's a problem as a mural.
Okay. What if the mural, depending on where the mural is placed,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. As long as we
If it's
want
like that's like the foyer of the church, and you
to.
have some religious symbolism, and one of them's Ark of the Covenant, that doesn't really weird you out. If it's like right behind the speaker, that
Yeah.
might get kind of like,
Right.
what exactly is going on? Okay.
I would also like to say that if you look at the Bible, there was a central sanctuary, and there were a lot of rituals that went on there,
Uh huh.
but that's where it should be.
Yes.
The local church shouldn't have that. The local church was basically to gather together for fellowship, worship, and instruction, and not a lot of complex rituals.
Okay.
In other words, that is restricted to the central sanctuary.
Right.
People, depending on your predilection, some people want everything simple and reject a lot of ritual, but some people seem to want to have a lot of ritual, that somehow they relate to that. Yeah, I
And
was
you mean ritual, not structure. There's a
yeah,
difference.
but what I'm saying is that it seems to me that if you want to talk about God's religion, that a lot of the complex rituals, incense, and investments of priests and all that's restricted to the central sanctuary, not something that should be done in every local area. So I would disagree with the concept that Christianity should have gone that route that it
Hmm.
did. That you have, in a local church, you build this huge, elaborate structure. You have, poor people all around, and then this huge, big structure in the, and people are
This is
practically stuck.
interesting. I think we're
Yeah,
gonna have a disagreement here, but keep going.
and then, but not only that, but within it, you have all very ornate, very elaborate, and then the priests are dressed up in elaborate
Hmm.
attire, and then there's all kinds of rituals going on. I don't believe that's the intent.
I kind of disagree with you a
All
little
right,
bit. I'm
all
going to
right.
get a little nuance. I know this is fun. A little nuance in terms of what you're saying about a big elaborate building among the poor. To some degree, I think that's true. But to some degree, I think it's the poor is always among us, and giving God our best is valuable.
All right.
And I think for us to, as a culture, give a percentage of our income and funnel it to a spot,
Right.
the idea that part of that is to create a beautiful location in
Okay.
which for us,
Yeah.
imagine I would love on a weekly Sabbath to go to a very aesthetically pleasing
Okay.
place
Yeah.
and think about the finer things in
You
life.
know,
That would be of great value to me, and I would rather be a little bit poorer on average and have that experience and have it be a shared experience that
okay.
lots of people get to do.
That's fair enough. But
And I know that's not exactly what you're talking about. I just
right.
wanted to get a little nuanced, just in case people thought that you were very, like, it's almost like aestheticism or something. You know what I
No.
mean? You can go the other way. I don't think you have to mean in a cardboard box,
I
because
used
people are, because there are homeless people around you
no.
does not mean that you
Right.
have to be that modest, because
No.
that's not really the point.
When Daniel was a boy, we met in the most maybe built beautiful building in the world. We met in an auditorium in Pasadena, California. That was for inch maybe the nicest
And just in
available.
case you're trying to Google and figure out what he's talking about, we can say we do not, in fact, endorse a lot of the positions of that church. So, yes. I just want to get that out there. That
Well,
was where we were at the time.
in later years, that building was used as a set for a
And
movie.
I was not even a willing participant necessarily, because I was a kid.
He was
So
just a
don't hold it
he
against
was
me.
just a boy.
Don't hold it against me.
But no, but no, what was I saying? That no,
You were saying
that
it was a beautiful building. It was a beautiful
no. But
building. I agree with that.
I'm saying there was a movie that many of them have seen
Uh oh.
where they did a concert, and that building was used as a setting for the
That
move.
thing you do.
Yeah.
So now they're really gonna know where it is. Thanks.
Oh, okay.
Skeletons in my closet. It's
Uh,
okay. You know, a lot of us grow up in cults. It's just how it works. So here are some things that people have pointed out regarding these instructions. So we've talked a little bit about the cover and the sculpture and all that. The other things we have mentioned here are the bread and some people, critics of the Bible, will be like, well, this is just a pagan custom that they just adopted. And okay, but here's the thing.
everybody prays. Everybody, you know what?
No. But what they're saying is leaving out food like that. But see, here's the thing: is that that's not what this is.
They ate it.
They ate it. Exactly, right? This is very different. So even if you want to say it's a response to the pagan custom, which I really can't stand, I hate the idea that God is reacting to pagan customs, but fair enough. Let's say he was. This is a refute of that. This is a refute of you have to put out food for the gods and it just decomposes over time. It's no, there's food that's set, and what we are reminded of is the bread of life, you know, the God sustaining us. So we have this symbol, and then the priests get to eat it. It doesn't just decompose and serve no function because God doesn't operate like that.
We can. I figured we would say more about it
The bread?
if we're alive and well and we get to Leviticus 24. That we will talk more about it there, and we'll connect it.
Yeah.
And we'll connect it with the second chapter of Mark.
Sure.
But I figure we'll get there later.
That's fine. That's a little tease. But, you know, I'm just throwing that out there because it's brought up here.
Right.
And then you also have these jars and chalices. And again, people kind of make a thing. It's like, well, it's like, you know, again, where they would put out stuff for the gods and stuff like that. But these serve a very different function than they would have done at that time. Ultimately, I'm not even sure. Did they even put anything in them?
In what?
In the jars and the chalices?
Well, depending on, I'd have to go back and see. There's drink offerings and there's
right, but they didn't just always have them. I don't think. Maybe I don't know. I thought they were used for the function, and then a lot of the time they would sit empty, which is different than pagan ritual.
Well, yeah, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, well, pagan ritual would again, it would be you would put it out, and it would just be set out for the gods, and it would just decompose. And at least this is my knowledge. If you're more of an expert about that, please comment below if I'm incorrect. I don't want to step beyond, but that is something that I've heard that was more of a thing, and it certainly was the way bread. I mean, I've seen it nowadays. You know, people put out food for statues and stuff like that, and the food just rots because you know
the time has come.
Yes,
that reminds me of a story.
The time has come. The walrus said.
That reminds me of a story. This Chinese person was honoring his ancestors, and he put out food by the grave.
Yep.
Now an American came along and he put flowers by the grave of his let's say his grandfather.
Right.
So he called over to the Chinese guy and said, you know, when is your ancestor going to come and eat that food? And the Chinese guy said, the same time that your ancestor comes out and smells those flowers. But anyway,
yeah,
just a story.
No.
But I wanted to go to Hebrews, the 8th chapter.
Okay.
And around verse 5, talking about the tabernacle, he who served the copy and shadow of the heavenly things, as Moses was divinely instructed when he was about to make the tabernacle. For he said, see that you make all things according to the pattern shown you on the mountain. So there's symbolism there. There's heavenly things that are being symbolized there. So there was another verse I wanted to get into.
And I wanted to ask you about that, but you can keep going.
The 10th chapter of Hebrews, it speaks of the Holy of Holies, and that's symbolic of God's throne. And now we have access to the heavenly Holy of Holies as Christians through Jesus Christ. And I'm going to Hebrews 10:19. Therefore, brethren, having boldness to enter the holiest by the blood of Jesus.
Yeah.
And so on. So I just wanted to bring that out. There's a lot of lessons, New Testament lessons we can derive as we go over this material.
But this is a question, and you might not have an easy answer for it, but because of the nature of the way the tabernacle is created, you end up with a pattern of 4 a lot, like because of squares and rectangles and things like that. And you might assume that that's kind of an interesting way of going about it because it could have been a different pattern. like there's lots of different ways to put together structures. Even something like a table, you need only three legs in order to make a table stand up. So why do you suppose there's so much four going on? Do you have a speculation on that?
Well, four is symbolic of the whole world, the four corners of the earth,
Mm,
and there's four empires that rule the world
that makes sense.
before the millennium. The fifth monarchy is Jesus Christ's return.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So it ties it to the material,
yeah, the world that God created,
right?
his his
Our
presence
material
his
existence,
presence is in the tabernacle, but
right?
ultimately pervade the whole world.
Interesting. Yeah,
Also,
because often with God you either think of three like Trinitarian or you think of seven like divine. So four was just kind of interesting. And okay, cool. Although three plus four is seven, so maybe you have something there. All right. All right. Anything else you want to talk about before we move further?
no.
Okay. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell, call up your friends because it's a great year to
Oh,
read the law. Oh wait,
one other thing, cherubim come up all the way in Genesis.
yes, with a flaming sword,
Yeah,
right?
so
And so they're associated with the judgment of sin. So it
that's a good
connects. It just brings it all full circle.
point. Yeah.
Although here's the difference, right? What did the cherubim look like in Genesis? It was this, flaming sword, a very frightening thing. Here, it does not appear that way. It appears more. Um, I don't want to say loving. That sounds too flippant, but you know what I mean, like protective. The
Right.
wings are outstretched, and this is going to be a symbol of forgiveness. This is the repair of that. So
Okay.
it is a change, right?
Well, it's the mercy seat. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So
Good
so
point.
we're getting nuance on cherubim too. Cherubim are not just forces of judgment, they're also they also symbolize the force of restoration.
Very good.
Thank you.
My son is getting eloquent as he gets older.
In my ancient years, look at my beard. Yes, uh, I have two kids. That does help. All right. So anyway, please like, subscribe, hit the bell. We'll see you tomorrow.